what kinds of augmented vision will we have? I don't know. I just know that it's a really wide bandwidth connection to the brain. Our project is called the Stanford Artificial Retina Project. This is a plug. And so the idea is a device that has a camera that captures the light, processing circuitry that mimics the processing that happens in the retina, and then electrodes that electrically stimulate the remaining ganglion cells, causing them to fire spikes that are then transmitted to their natural targets in the brain. Now, let me be clear, this is not our idea. People have been working on this for decades before me. In fact, there are devices out there that do a crude version of just what I said. We think that one of the reasons for that limited function is that these devices were not designed to respect the particular cell type selectivity in the retina, the fact that the different cell types do really different things and transmit their signals to different places. Each one of those cell types covers the entire visual scene, so it has its own full visual representation. And each of the cell types eventually gives rise to a ganglion cell type that sends visual information to a distinct set of targets in the brain. So you should think of the retina then as a whole bunch of different Photoshop filters creating different versions of the visual scene that are transmitted to different targets in the brain. We don't know how the brain puts all that together to give rise to a visual experience. If I knew that, you would have heard about it by now, okay? We don't know. But we do know that this is the structure of the output of the retina. And we think that we need to mimic that structure properly in order to give rise to high-quality visual sensations. When we build a device that can do what I said, that can conduct the orchestra, if you will, properly, and truly control all the different instruments and make the right things happen, what we've done is to create a spectacular research tool for investigating how those signals are used by the brain, because we get a level of control over those signals that wasn't at all possible before. And so we can start playing all the kind of tricks that scientists play to figure out how the downstream stuff is working. Yet another point is that once we've done that and created an instrument that does this kind of thing, it opens up a kind of a almost spookier, more complex realm of visual augmentation, potentially providing visual sensations that are unlike any that you've ever seen before, and in fact that your normal biological visual system cannot create. And finally, all these things, everything I've said so far, has to do with vision, whether it be replacing vision, investigating vision, augmenting vision. But the kinds of issues that I'm talking about, which is looking at a neural circuit that has many different cell types that do complicated different things from one another, using our basic science knowledge of that to go in and interact with that circuit in the way that's necessary to reproduce those signals. All that's the same problem you have interacting with any area of the brain. The brain, generally speaking, has these same features everywhere you look. Layered structures, many different cell types within the layered structure. Some cell types receiving input from here and sending them to there, some cell types receiving input from there and sending it to here, and so on. And there's no way to interact with circuits in the brain in a meaningful way that reproduces their function unless you can build a device that does the things I told you, reads the signal, figures out where the different cells are, figures out how to stimulate the different cells, and then goes and produces an interesting signal. Now, if you go to a different brain circuit, the specifics are different. The collection of cell types is different. What they're doing is different. Their role in your daily life is different. So there's lots of differences. So it's not like you can just plug and play and off you go. But the core technology for interacting with brain circuits, that's what we think is going to be very common. And we think that because it's a doorway into the brain, this is the best place right now to figure that out, because we can do it right now. Hopefully most of us or all of us would like to be able to provide the ability for people who are blind to have their vision restored. Some of us, myself included, have questions about visual augmentation and what we would want to do with it and what society should do with it and so on and so forth. But then there's even more sort of out there possibilities like augmenting memory, augmenting our capacity to think and process information. Sky's the limit. The problem is you have to interface with the brain. So We think that solving this problem in the retina of how to deal with all these different cell types and their different layers and doing all their specific unique things and building electronics that can do that is kind of the doorway into creating all sorts of interfaces to the brain of the future.